I just wanted to talk about solving a little problem here. Quite often you'll get ropes tangled. I've chosen this because it's a really serious example. I mean, typically you're probably only going to be untangling an 8-metre rope, but the technique still applies. The temptation is to try and thread the rope back through the path. But generally, when you get a tangle, what's happened is loops have got caught through. You won't actually have to unknot anything as such, or probably very little, maybe in a big bundle like this. But the technique that I use is, rather than try to follow it, I just use my fingers to try and separate out any loops that have got caught, and then I'll try and find an end and start taking it out from there, and it'll probably catch another loop before long. So there we go. Again, same procedure, just pull those loops apart, just throw it around, and it'll start all to come undone. Just a question of flipping it around to loosen it up, because what's actually happening is very often loops like this have gone through, and all we need to do is just release them and everything will come out. I've probably got one little bit there caught, but so you get the picture. And the more normal thing that you're going to run into is where you've picked up a rope or normally taken it out of a hank, and you'll find that it catches a few loops. And the easiest way to get that out is just a sort of flicking, snaking motion. Let's see if we can create something. So there, I've got a few bits. There we go. And as you can see, that's come out. Talking about rope maintenance, one thing you'll notice is sometimes rope will come out twisted like this. And the problem that can occur, particularly with loose laid, i.e. loosely twisted rope like this, where the angle of the twist is quite flat rather than being quite vertical. So it means that the rope will open up like this if you counter twist it, and two things can happen. One, you can catch your finger in the loop and pull one of the strands. The other thing that can sometimes happen is it sort of goes out of twist, out of balance. Some people call that high-stranding. Again, this seems to happen more with loose laid single yarn ropes. I think it probably happens less with double yarn because you've got a counter twist of the double yarns versus the outer strands. That's just a guess, but what happens is that people tend to handle this carelessly, catch it with their finger, or if they get a kink in the rope, they tend to try and pull it out. And then that causes a twist and you get a high strand. One way of maintaining your rope to try and avoid this tendency, when I take a rope out, I'll quite often just pull it through my fingers like this. So I've got the rope, one finger between the ropes here like that. And there, that just pulls the twists out. Another method is exactly as I said for getting tangles out, where you do this sort of movement. You see people who use ropes for exercise, you know, they do this sort of movement. So you just flick it and snake it, and that helps get the twists out. If you do get one of these high strands, try and feed it back in, and then try and, just with finger and thumb, just try and push it out towards the end of the rope. And when you get to the end, you'll probably find that one strand is slightly longer, so you'll have to re-knot it and trim it. But try and catch that sort of problem really early on and avoid pulling those kinks out. Pulling kinks out really does mess this sort of rope up. So just periodically, just run the rope through your hands and working towards the ends. Just make sure you've got any irregularities ironed out. And obviously use the figure of 8 method. Don't use this method going round your elbow, because if you do it the wrong way, you'll see that the rope will twist like that. This is the right way. So let's see if we can create that, or whether this rope's too subtle and flexible to... No, you can't really see it with this rope. You find it with rope that's got a little bit more twist to it quite often. By the way, you might have to do that untwisting trick with the finger a couple of times, and then usual figure of 8 to put it away. And that with a little bit of oiling when the rope starts to get dry, and reburning off, should keep it going for a long time. By the way, if you notice when you're putting the rope away on the hank, you're getting a twist in here. You will get a certain amount. I mean, look there, it's already got a slight one, but make sure it's not sort of wound up like that, and it'll prolong the life of your rope, particularly with these more Japanese style ones. The more tightly twisted, harder laid, particularly double yarn ropes, are really resilient. Things like my tosser, that's virtually indestructible, regardless of how bad your handling is, so it makes it a really nice beginner's rope. Ropes like this and the Osaka and so on, which are very loose laid, single yarn, very Japanese style, are a bit more demanding in taking care of. They're lovely to use. I often use the parallel and say, well, a sort of double yarn tight laid rope is a bit like a touring tyre that'll give you lots of mileage. It might not be the most efficient in terms of grip and stopping power and so on, in rope terms, and handling really, and softness, flexibility and so on. At the other end of the scale, you've got the sort of Japanese style single yarn loose laid ropes, which are lovely to use, handle beautifully as would a race tyre, but unfortunately don't always have the same sort of lifespan you'll get out of a more resilient, rope like like a double yarn hard laid rope, tosser and so on. But they're an absolute joy to use, the loose laid ropes. They're just so light, flexible and soft. They compress nicely when you tie knots. So it's always a bit of a trade-off. Probably a nice middle ground is actually a loose laid double yarn rope. They hold up really well, not quite as smooth as a single yarn, but a good all-rounder. Anyway, that's it for now. Got to go and pack orders. Bye bye. Catch you later.